Carol White and I are honored to join the Forum 2023 that's considering various aspects of the ecological crisis.
Right. And good morning, everyone.
Yes. I'm going to start out by describing what we call the religious naturalist orientation, which requires that I explain what we mean by religious, what we mean by naturalist, and how we combine the two together. And then Carol and I will talk about how this orientation has helped us in our ecological frameworks. So this forum is, of course, made up of many persons who are religious, but religious, to my mind, has a common theme, which is that all religions have a large story, a large mythos. If you think about the story of the Old Testament with the prophets, or the life of the Buddha, or any of these others, these are the stories that tell how things are and which things matter. And the religious person that adopts that story then interfaces with the story along three axes. The first we call interpretive. So what does this story mean? How does it influence my understanding of death, of the meaning of life, all sorts of questions along sort of existential, philosophical lines, perhaps theological. And the second is spiritual, which we think of as internal responses to the story, such as gratitude, reverence, awe and wonder, humility, many other emotional frames of mind. And the third we call moral or ethical, which is how does this story inform me, help me with my interactions with other humans and with the non-human world in general. So if we take this frame, then what has happened in the last few decades is that our scientific inquiries have led to understandings that come together as a large story, a mythos. Loyal Rue suggests we call it everybody's story. And this takes us from the Big Bang to the present, all of the cosmology, the origin of life, the evolution of life, and the coevolution of life within its planetary matrix. And the religious naturalist adopts everybody's story as her or his story, and then perceives it along the same three axes. Interpretive, what does this story tell me about who I am and how to proceed? Spiritual, how does this story fill me with these same spiritual responses? And morally, how does this story inform my communal responses to the world, including we add eco-morality, where this is morality with respect to the rest of the planetary ecosystem. And so a group of us have been developing this axis. It's not an ism. Each religious naturalist conceives and forms these stories along their own lines, emphasizing certain things and not others. Carol and I have both written books that describe our responses to this orientation. And there's also now something called the Religious Naturalist Association, where both of us are in the leadership, where persons who are interested in learning about this or in spreading the word join our association, and we have newsletters and so on. So that's what Religious Naturalist Association and orientation mean to us.
Right.
Carol.
Thank you, Ursula. So as a younger religious naturalist, and I have been inspired by Ursula's works, and very, very fortunate to be part of the group that she has named. I also teach about religious naturalists as a philosopher of religion. So I often talk about religious naturalism as a capacious ecological worldview that creatively and persuasively reframes humans as natural processes in relationship with other natural processes. affirming the inherent value of what I call the more than human worlds, of which humans are a part. As such, and this follows through with what Ursula was saying, religious naturalism has the potential to address in very creative ways the familiar human nature binary that has perpetuated various isms targeted by eco-justice advocates and social justice activists of all persuasions. And Ursula, I wonder what you think of this next statement I'm going to make. In my model of religious naturalism, I often emphasize that religious naturalists draw on two fundamental convictions. This is what I think: the sense of nature's richness, spectacular complexity, and fertility that is often explained through scientific theories, and the recognition that nature is the only realm in which human animals live out our lives. Within this context, of course, ecology and religion, it means that any truths we humans seek or try to discover are revealed within the natural order, natural reality. So that's my general introduction.
Beautiful. Let me add that it's not only us religious naturalists who are celebrating the sacredness of the natural world, but we are blessed throughout the ages with poets, with artists, with others who have celebrated this these features of the natural world and greatly enrich our understandings and our joy in inhabiting the planet. So this is something that where we bring in poets like Mary Oliver and thinkers like James Baldwin and all sorts of wonderful persons that together form a panoply. So this is not just a few present day seekers who are trying to forge this into a religious way of life.
Right. And to add to that, Ursula, religious naturalism, even before we coined the name, actually many of the tenets and ideas have been presented in older philosophical traditions and other cultures. You think about animism and many indigenous cultures and cultures, around the world, in Africa and elsewhere. So I wanted to just briefly nod to the idea of why we've been invited to talk about religious naturalism within the context of this forum around what the forum sponsors are calling the rights of nature. Basically, as religious naturalists, I don't use that language per se, rights of nature, probably because as a philosopher of religion, rights language, or the language of rights, have been often subscribed to humans in terms of principles of freedom or entitlement and what normative rules are allowed of humans to some type of legal system, social convention, or ethical theory. But what I'm about to say is similar to what I think the forum is getting at. I prefer to talk about nature, including the emergence of the human species, and evolutionary speaking, we owe our existence to nature itself. In this regard, I prefer to talk about humans' constitutive relationality with the more than human worlds, compelling our species then to uphold certain principles and ethical theories and actions that promote the flourishment of all life. So that would be my nod to what the forum is doing in terms of this language of the rights of nature.
Right. Well, Robin Kimmer and I also covered this in our segment, and I want to just lift up again that nature just is. Nature moves forward, and what the piece that's the widget here is the human, and the human having for millennia and particularly in recent times with capitalism and industrialism and so on, have seen nature as a resource, as something to exploit and use, and in many cases totally demolish and extinguish species and all of the other tragedies that we have inflicted. So nature will go on. The creatures within the planetary matrix sort out their rights and responsibilities in the context of an ongoing flux of natural phenomena, storms, temperatures, and so on. And so they negotiate their rights, perhaps, if you will, in the context of their flourishing. And we humans, I believe, have what our goal should be is to take responsibility for making sure that these ecosystems and species and ways of life flourish as they did before we came on the scene and started messing around with it.
Exactly. I totally agree. We're newcomers and we must honor those who've come before us. And I just want to say, in terms of young people, if we have any young people listening to our conversation, for me as a professor, when I teach religious naturalism at Bucknell, I see the excitement in the students' eyes when I have them consider the tenets, the principles of religious naturalism. And I think there are two things that I take away in terms of why I think religious naturalism can be appealing to young people. Number one, it can inspire young people to see and experience aesthetic and ethical paradigms for living, experiencing, and seeing differently as relational material beings. That's who we are as human beings. And number two, I think it gives a sense of wonder and humility about life. I live near the ocean. I know you do, Ursula. And if you just stroll along the beach on any given day, how can you not feel a sense of just awesomeness about life in that moment? And be in relationship with all the dolphins, the grain of sand, anything, you know. So I think that's what it also offers young people. Would you like to, we have a minute or so left, I think so.
Okay, well, I just want to say that in particularly in the monotheisms, the nature is often celebrated in many ways, but it is celebrated in the context of its being God's creation. And then the ultimate thing is the God whom the humans have in fact created and crafted in the course of developing their religious orientations. And what for many young people in particular, for whom the God concept doesn't resonate, this idea of celebrating nature just as she is, just as she flares forth, and includes them in her processes and in her development, is a very exciting thing for young kids.
Exactly. Yes. So thank you, Ursula. It's always good to see you. And Allison and Susie, we thank you for this time. Okay.
Enjoy the forum.
Thank you. Bye.